analyzing the outfits in White Chicks. A bunch of movies are considered staples of the 2000s, like Legally Blonde, Mean Girls, and The Devil Wears Prada, but one that I don't see get a lot of love is 2004's White Chicks. The film follows two FBI agents who decide to disguise themselves as white heiresses in order to uncover a kidnapping plot in the Hamptons. When it was first released, critical response was overwhelmingly negative, which I think has a lot to do with people considering it a romantic comedy when it's really more of a buddy cop movie. Like, it has way more in common with Rush Hour than it does 50 First Dates. Regardless, the film was a hit with the public and wound up grossing over $100 million at the box office, and even now, 20 years later, it's still making people laugh. White Chicks captured a very specific moment in 2000s pop culture, something that's best exemplified through its costume design, which comes courtesy of Jory Woodman. All of the characters' outfits take notes from real fashion trends of the era, making it the ultimate time capsule of early 2000s style. And with many of those same trends making a resurgence today, we figured it was about time that we revisited White Chicks. Today we're going to be discussing all of the outfits worn by the main characters in the film, including their real-life inspirations and how they relate to the story at large. So let's get into it. The film begins with the Copeland brothers working undercover, with their elaborate disguises and commitment to the bit foreshadowing their eventual adventure. Unfortunately for them, the drug bust fails, drawing the anger of their chief and the ridicule of their fellow agents. We later see the two in their standard work attire, which is plain and simple in an approachable white-collar manner. The navies, grays, and taupes of these suits make them match not only their co-workers, but their surroundings, and this sort of camouflage emphasizes the monotony of their lives, as well as how they're often overlooked by others. The boys attempt to get back into their boss's good graces by accepting a babysitting gig that no one else wants, and when they go to pick up the spoiled Wilson sisters, they're in formal black suits, which really makes them look the part of a bodyguard/chauffeur, hence the girls' dismissive behavior. After a car accident that leaves Brittany and Tiffany with minor cosmetic injuries, the two throw a hissy fit and declare that they will no longer be going to the Hamptons, and knowing that they can't afford another screw-up, the boys decide to head there themselves, with Marcus adopting Tiffany's identity and Kevin Brittany's. The sequence is an ode to the stereotypical movie makeover montage, but it reminds me most of Miss Congeniality and Mrs. Doubtfire. According to the Wayans brothers, the makeup was by far the worst part of the filmmaking process. Besides taking up to 7 hours a day to apply, it also wasn't very comfortable, as they were covered in a combination of acrylic paint and foundation, wore thick latex prosthetics over their entire faces, and had to use a pair of contacts that they compared to bottle caps. When Kevin and Marcus arrive at the Hamptons, they get their first taste of the typical female experience, namely sexual harassment. And I like that the film acknowledges that even when women clearly express their disinterest, men will keep trying. These outfits are a reinterpretation of what the real Wilson sisters were wearing earlier, sharing the same silhouette and general color palette, but they're a touch more casual, perhaps because the boys were working with a tighter budget. Kevin is wearing Brittany's blues, but in denim instead of velour, while Marcus has traded out Tiffany's white leather suit for a hot pink cotton one. In the 1990s, suit sets were all the rage, as seen in Clueless or The Nanny, and the trend continued well into the 2000s, just with a slightly different silhouette. Skirts got shorter and jackets got tighter, resulting in a sexier look that would have left Coco Chanel and her tweed-wearing customers in shock. And I do think that the film's usage of these two-piece sets is a subtle reference to the outfits that were historically worn by wealthy white women. The two are also wearing graphic tees, which were another staple of the 2000s, with all sorts of celebrities wearing t-shirts and tanks with brand logos and tongue-in-cheek slogans. Their shirts are from two of the biggest brands from the time period, Juicy Couture and Dior, although there's no denying that they had very different price points and clientele. As for footwear, Kevin has on a pair of simple black mules, while Marcus has a pair of pink stiletto sneakers. All kinds of sneakers were popular in the 2000s, Converse, Heelys, even Skechers, so slapping a heel onto them was a no-brainer, and I've definitely seen this same style make a return in recent years. While shopping with the girls, Marcus is paired up with Karen, while Kevin is tasked with helping Lisa. The movie shows a surprising amount of awareness when it comes to society's ridiculous beauty standards, with Lisa having a full-blown breakdown because of her body dysmorphia, while Karen refuses to allow Marcus to try on a larger size. It's a small detail, but I'm sure all of us have said "suck it in" while trying to zip something up, and it makes the ridiculous situation more relatable. The leather suit that Marcus tries on would have been quite the hot number in 2004, as multiple designers had just shown similar looks earlier that year, but he struggles to even get it on, which Karen attempts to help him with by pulling on his briefs until they become a thong.
Honey, this is just not gonna work. I'm sorry.
Well, of course not. You're wearing the wrong underwear.
The right pair of underwear really can make a difference, which is why I'm so excited to talk about today's sponsor, Parade. One of my biggest complaints when I'm shopping for underwear is that I usually feel like I have to choose between style or comfort. But with Parade, you can have the best of both worlds. Parade has an assortment of apparel and underthings for any occasion, whether you're looking for something fun and flirty or cool and casual. Some of my favorite Parade products come from the Replay line, which is made out of a super soft recycled fabric with 360 degrees of stretch, making it my go-to whether I'm lounging at home or going out on the town. This is the Replay Triangle Bralette in the color 8-ball, which is so comfortable that I don't know if I can wear anything else ever again. Unlike a lot of other bralettes, it has adjustable straps, which means it's just as stylish as it is supportive. And it's one of my only bras that I don't want to rip off the second I get home. I also got the matching Replay Brief, which is the perfect everyday underwear that I never need to worry about riding up, no matter what shenanigans I'm getting into. So don't make the same mistake as Kevin and get the right underwear today. Just click on the link in my description and use code MODERN30 for 30% off Parade site-wide. Now let's get back to the video. At the Southampton Nuclear Opposition Benefit, aka SNOB, Kevin and Marcus once again wear coordinating outfits, and they seem to be taking notes from their arch enemies, the ModernGurlz, with their satin dresses, initial necklaces, and perfectly coiffed hairdos. It's a small detail, but you can actually see that Marcus still has the tags on his dress. And since the film already set up that the boys only have access to their own bank accounts, I'd bet that they fully intended to return the dresses once the night was over. The popular silhouette of the early 2000s was definitely form-fitting, so these dresses do look a bit more frumpy in comparison to what the other women are wearing. But I think that the looser fit succeeds in creating the illusion of a more stereotypically feminine figure. Once again, Kevin is in blue and Marcus is in pink. And while this color choice is primarily because of the Wilson sisters' style preferences, the colors are also symbolic of the two men's individual story arcs. Marcus's pinks are representative of how he gets more in touch with his feminine side as the film progresses, allowing him to reconcile with his wife and better understand her struggles. Kevin's blues, on the other hand, are symbolic of his masculinity, with the character adopting a male persona in order to woo Denise. And at the end of the film, he's even rewarded for this lie. I personally would have liked to see more growth on his part, maybe by making him a bigger playboy at the beginning, before forcing him to realize the error of his ways after spending time with Denise. But whatever, that's not the point of the video. After a long and tiring day, the boys go back to their room in the hopes of getting some much-needed rest, but they're interrupted when Karen, Lisa, and Tori come over for some gossip, ice cream, and martinis. For this slumber party, Marcus changes into a pair of pink PJs with little yellow ducks, while Kevin wears a blue pair with a bunch of colorful cats. Compared to the girls, who are in tank tops and comfy pants, their pajama sets read as more formal, symbolizing how they're still closed off and putting on an act. Obviously, it also helps hide their figure. The next day, they all go to the beach, which, side note, looks horrible. And with all of them getting a bit closer to one another, their outfits become more cohesive and they start to look like a proper group. As they say, birds of a feather flock together. Kevin and Marcus are both wearing colorful swimsuits with a printed sarong and a tied-up shirt. They're a lot more covered up than everyone else, but it doesn't look out of place. Later that day, Kevin heads out on his date with Denise, having stolen both Latrell's identity and his suit. And the simple switch from a dress shirt to a t-shirt instantly makes it look more hip and trendy than his work attire. Marcus has his own date to go on, and we can sense his lack of enthusiasm based on his clothing alone, which seems way too casual for the fancy restaurant Latrell has brought them to. However, there's still a sense of respect for his cover identity, with the outfit still being on trend by incorporating the graphic tees, chain belts, moto jackets, and bootcut jeans we've come to associate with the early 2000s. Later on in the night, everyone heads to the club, and we see that Kevin is once again wearing an outfit that is near identical to Marcus's, emphasizing their sisterly/brotherly bond. I know that their outfits might look too casual for the club today, but in the 2000s, there was a lot more flexibility in that regard, especially if you were someone of high social standing. You'll also notice that even though Heather and Megan are wearing the same color schemes as Kevin and Marcus, their outfits couldn't be more different, highlighting their conflicting personalities and backgrounds. These outfits are the closest Kevin and Marcus have come to dressing like their true selves, which is also reflected in their actions, notably with their iconic dance battle, which is heavily rooted in their Black identity and culture. Side note, Gina's friend, Shawnice, is a great example of the differences between white style and Black style, with her clothing having a good deal of street style elements. Even her shoes are more urban, with the limited edition Manolo Blahniks taking inspiration from Timberland boots, which had evolved from workwear to a hip-hop staple in the 90s, and in the 2000s the heeled style was frequently worn by celebrities involved in that music scene. After their ruse is discovered, Kevin and Marcus are fired, resulting in a temporary rift in their relationship. But after discovering that Warren Vandergeld is the actual kidnapper, they reconcile. Back in their disguise, they quickly head to a fashion show with an all-white dress code, a not-so-subtle reference to the legendary white parties that P. Diddy used to throw in the Hamptons, which in the 2000s were often compared to the shindigs described in The Great Gatsby, but in more recent years have developed a sinister connotation. Marcus's outfit is similar to what he wore to the benefit, and it even has some subtle pink sequins, while Kevin's outfit looks like what he was wearing when they first arrived at the Hamptons, which is actually a great representation of their individual evolution over the course of the film. On the catwalk, the two wear some rather avant-garde looks that have jellyfish-like tendrils and corally ruffles, which are simply intended to highlight the absurdity and theatricality of the fashion industry. Back in 2019, Kendall and Kylie Jenner's Met Gala looks were humorously compared to these outfits, and yeah, I see it. The Vandergelds attempt to sabotage them by replacing their runway outfits with a pair of swan dresses, a reference to Bjork's dress at the 2001 Oscars, which we actually have a video all about if you want to learn more. For once, Kevin is wearing pink instead of Marcus, but I actually think it makes sense for his character since he's finally being honest and vulnerable with Denise, behavior that's typically considered more feminine. Besides, with Marcus's wife Gina wearing pink, he doesn't really need to be the one wearing it anymore, and it's a nice way of showing that their relationship has made a recovery. There were several blonde sister duos making headlines in the 2000s, like Jessica and Ashley Simpson, Hillary and Haley Duff, and Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. But the main inspiration for the Wilsons and the Vandergelds were Paris and Nikki Hilton, who were part of the billion-dollar hotel chain family. Sean Wayans had seen both of the Hiltons on the cover of For Him magazine, and he thought it would be funny to play a similar brand of white woman. Although the other Wayans brothers initially brushed off the idea as a joke, after some brainstorming, they realized they could treat it like a modern-day Some Like It Hot, which followed two musicians who disguised themselves as women to hide from a group of mobsters. The Hilton sisters had risen to prominence in the late 90s, with their various exploits around Beverly Hills, the Hamptons, and Manhattan being reported on by several publications, and they were often referred to as the first it girls of the 21st century. Paris became a household name in 2003 after she and fellow socialite Nicole Richie began starring in the reality TV series The Simple Life, although her leaked sex tape was also an undeniable factor behind her pop culture infamy, and she proceeded to appear in dozens of movies, music videos, and TV shows in addition to her extremely busy social calendar. The Wilson sisters, who are heiresses to the Wilson Cruise Line, are depicted as stereotypical dumb blondes as an ode to Paris Hilton's contrived public persona. Another reference to Hilton includes their pet Pomeranian, Baby. As I mentioned in my Sharpay Evans style analysis, Paris Hilton popularized the trend of handbag dogs in the early 2000s, and it became increasingly common to see celebrities carry around their pets in luxury purses. Just like their real-life inspirations, the Wilson sisters are often matching with each other, either in regard to color, silhouette, or pattern, and this is something we see Marcus and Kevin continue to do while impersonating them. As we already mentioned, Brittany typically opts for blue, while Tiffany gravitates towards pink, with the only exceptions being the white party and during the fashion show. I think that their first runway looks are so adorable, especially with the corset tops and micro mini skirts, but their white finale outfits just look like a bedsheet went through a paper shredder. While their clothing doesn't immediately scream designer, their wealth is displayed through other means, namely their purses, which include some of the most sought-after bags of the era. Although I do think I should clarify that the ones in the film are actually knockoffs, but I think that has more to do with budget constraints than it does storytelling, and I'm sure we're meant to think that they're real. When the sisters are introduced, we see them with a slew of Louis Vuitton bags, including the brand's classic monogram, but the more swoon-worthy items are the cherry blossom and multicolor, which were part of a collaboration with Japanese artist Takashi Murakami that wound up becoming one of the biggest fashion phenomenons of the entire 2000s. Marcus and Kevin wind up using a few of these bags while they're undercover, and we can assume that they just took them from Brittany and Tiffany's collection. It's not like they would have noticed anyway. We also see Brittany with a blue Hermes Birkin, which actually hadn't broken into the mainstream at that point, as evidenced by the episode of Gilmore Girls that aired in 2005, where Rory had absolutely no idea what a Birkin even was. The Wilson sisters and their impersonators wear a few cross necklaces, and while many celebrities were spotted wearing the accessory in the 2000s, the ones in the film are eerily similar to the ones worn by various members of the Hilton family, although I'd bet that they aren't nearly as expensive. At one point, we also see Tiffany with a pair of Chanel earrings, and I'm sure that it comes as no surprise to hear that Paris Hilton was also a fan of the brand, although more so when it came to purses than jewelry. While the Wilsons are undeniably rude, their stupidity prevents them from coming across as outright villains, but that's certainly not the case for the VanderGurlz, who perfectly exemplify the type of two-faced brat all of us have encountered at one point in our lives. Incredibly full of themselves to the point of delusion, enough just isn't enough as far as these girls are concerned, and seeing them finally get their comeuppance at the end of the film is really satisfying. I just wish we'd had an end credits scene where they're working miserable jobs or something. Compared to the Wilsons, who often wind up looking like teen pop stars, the VanderGurlz clothing is a touch more subtle and sophisticated, something I'd attribute to the actual fabrics that they're wearing, opting for silk and satin instead of denim and cotton. There's still the occasional designer print, like their Burberry check swimsuits or Heather's Dior monogram top, but they're more subtle than the Louis Vuitton monograms. The pink Dior top is probably one of the most iconic pieces in the entire film. And although it wasn't as prevalent as some other prints in the 2000s, it's made a hell of a comeback in recent years. Many of their outfits are directly influenced by popular trends of the time period, like their flowy skirts, Emma Savall tops, initial necklaces, and metallic dresses, highlighting their role as the it girls of the Hamptons. The only looks I'm not a big fan of are their white jumpsuits at the very end of the film, but considering they get a bucket of red paint dropped on them, I think the production was just looking for something simple that they could make a bunch of. During their time in the Hamptons, Kevin and Marcus are usually accompanied by Karen, Tori, and Lisa, who have incredibly different personalities, styles, and levels of wealth. Karen's probably the wealthiest, considering Warren Vandergeld actually borrows money from her father to pay his mortgage, while Tori is probably the least well off, as she's the only one with an actual job, functioning as the group's publicist. Although there isn't much of a physical resemblance, I'd bet that Tori is at least partially inspired by Lizzie Grubman, whose father was a popular entertainment lawyer, and these connections eventually led to her starting her own PR agency, where she began representing Britney Spears, the Backstreet Boys, and Jay-Z. Having grown up rich, Grubman was already part of the same elite group that she represented, and she was often spotted at the biggest events alongside the era's biggest stars. However, in 2002, she was arrested after she intentionally drove her car into a crowd of people in the Hamptons, where she allegedly shouted, "Fuck you, white trash," at the bouncer. But controversially, she only wound up serving 38 days in prison. Because the rich and powerful rarely have any real consequences, in 2005 she also received her own reality TV show, Power Girls, which was essentially Donald Trump's The Apprentice, but for PR. All things considered, I'm actually surprised that the Wayans didn't make a reference to the incident, especially considering that we actually see Tori driving around town. Because she's more of a working girl, we see her in a fair amount of pants, as if she's always ready to run off and resolve a crisis. She generally reads as a bit more high-strung than the rest of the girls, often carrying a cocktail, her cell phone, and a pack of cigarettes. Mind you, they're fancy cigarettes, and we see her with a pack of American Spirits and with a pack of Sobernies at another point, which she definitely only smokes because they match her outfit. Tori's looks are a bit all over the place, being glamorous one day and sporty the next, which might relate to her more independent personality. There's also some international influences in her attire, with her sleepwear featuring a Japanese-inspired kimono, while her white party outfit is clearly a riff on an Indian sari. Although many of Tori's outfits have neutral tones, she does love a pop of color and a fun print, and her introduction outfit is probably one of my favorite looks in the whole film. My least favorite look of hers is hands down her clubbing outfit, which just has way too much going on. Like the fingerless gloves actually give me anxiety. Cropped baggy pants were trending at the time, but I'll be honest, I don't know if anyone managed to pull it off, and pairing them with heels was just a choice. Karen probably has the most developed personality of the three girls, with her storyline revolving around her situationship with Heather Vandergeld's boyfriend, Heath. Even though it's clear to everyone else that he's just stringing her along, she can't bring herself to leave him, and even admits to using her appearance in a desperate attempt to get his attention. With their low necklines, short hems, and cutouts, her outfits are consistently sexy, but instead of representing confidence, they're a sign of her insecurity. I also think it's interesting that she's one of the only girls who wears red, which is symbolic of love, or in her case, the lack of it. My favorite outfit of hers is definitely her silver Dolce & Gabbana dress, and similar styles were also worn by Monica Bellucci, Beyoncé, and Kim Kardashian. If the girls were Sex and the City characters, Lisa would be Charlotte, as evidenced by her more uptight behavior and modest clothing. Even though it isn't explicitly stated, I'd guess that Lisa is an old money type, hence her preppy retro style, which includes giant sun hats, pearl necklaces, halter tops, pleated skirts, and sleek updos. She tends to wear neutral colors, which makes her appear more chic, and even her Burberry outfit, which could easily have veered into tacky territory, looks subtle. The Burberry check saw a huge increase in popularity in the 2000s because of the era's obsession with logomania, and the fact that Lisa is wearing a headband, jacket, purse, and bandana that all feature the print is the kind of maximalism that's totally on brand for the 2000s. If you asked me which character's wardrobe I'd be most likely to wear, it's without a doubt Denise's. While the film doesn't explicitly state her age, the simplicity of her outfits make her come across a lot more mature than the rest of the female characters. They're cohesive and tell a clear story, showing that she already has her shit together. She isn't in the process of discovering who she really is. Unlike everyone else who's at the Hamptons for fun, she's there to work, and as a result her clothing is a touch more formal, as if she's forcing people to take her seriously. Aside from her consistent neutrals, you'll also notice that she has a penchant for blue, making her match with Kevin, highlighting their connection and romance. Compared to the overt sexiness of some of the other girls' outfits, Denise's feel more sensual, like Aphrodite come to life, and I'm not remotely surprised that Kevin was so taken with her. I also love that they have her wear her natural hair, which besides emphasizing her strength and confidence, also shows how different she is from the usual Hamptons crowd. There honestly isn't a single outfit of hers that I don't like, but if I had to choose a favorite, I'd probably go with the silk halter top with the white skirt and shawl. It's just the perfect amount of elegant and fun. Which character in White Chicks has your favorite outfits? And what movie would you like us to take a look at next? I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye!